So yeah, we watched Attack on Titan. I didn't think I was going to like it based on just my impression of it from the gore standpoint, from the internet standpoint, but honestly, I ended up really enjoying it as I went through this. So I'm just gonna talk about my confessions about the show. I'm gonna spoil the anime and the manga, so if you are not caught up, please don't watch. So I think the first character that I knew from Attack on Titan just from outside sources was Levi, and that's because I was on Tumblr in like 2013 and 2014, and he was all over my dash, either dressed up like a maid or like a catboy. And that was really it. I thought that he was just everybody's husband, and that was just kind of it. And then I didn't know until I watched the show that like the cleaning thing is legit and it's canon. That kind of threw me for a loop. I also knew about Mikasa, and I knew that her last name was Ackerman, so I figured that they were like siblings, her and Levi, and then they were not. I was also under the impression that everybody in this show freaking dies. Like, I don't know, I guess I just got that impression from the dark, like, tone of the show that everyone was gonna die. And so, I was getting used to, like, getting ready, like, here's my cast, I met them all, and then suddenly, like, partway through, they're all gonna die. That's what happens in every JoJo arc. I figured that would happen in this one, too. But really, the only character I knew for sure was gonna die was Sasha, unfortunately. I knew she was gonna die. So that meant that right away, like, the first time I saw her interacting with the others and with like Mikasa especially, they were so cute. I just wanted the end game for them to go and like live in some cabin in the woods forever and to be safe and away from fighting and war, and I thought that that was awesome. I also knew that this guy was a character. His name was Marco. He was all over my Tumblr dash also because him and John are like the besties for the resties. But what I didn't really know anything else about him, and then 3 seconds in he just freaking dies. So I really was under the impression that everybody in this freaking show just freaking dies, and so I was really surprised when I saw who lived, how everyone lived, and all of that. I guess the only other thing from my Tumblr days is that I had a follower and a friend who was like obsessed with Hanji, and that's really my experience with Hanji was just like my experience with that Tumblr user. I'm like, oh yep, that's the #1 Hanji fan. So, I also knew that Eren turned into a Titan, but I only knew it because of this meme, I hate Titans turns into Titan. And so I knew that people could turn into Titans, and so we watch one episode and we see the armored Titan, then we see Reiner, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's clearly it. Reiner is the armored Titan, like I know this for a fact. But then Eren actually turns into a Titan, and I guess I didn't pay attention enough earlier. I had no idea what the Titan looks like. He doesn't look anything like Eren, he's like a freaking elf. And so all of my other like really cool theories, like the fact that Pixis was the colossal Titan, really just didn't make sense. I think Pixis would have been a great Titan. That was too soon! So at this point, it's like, okay, you can't base it on the looks, so Reiner is not the armored Titan. But then we see the female Titan, who is so clearly Annie, and now I'm tripping over my own self, like, and my own logic, trying to figure out who the heck is a Titan, why are they Titans, I'm just so confused. Anyway, for more about Annie, so when Annie decided she was going to go to the military police instead of being like part of their scouting group, I said something to the effect of, Annie, she's going to be around right now, but she's going to disappear. She'll come back, like, at the end. There will be, like, some, like, little, like, plot. Maybe it'll be a couple episodes that she'll be important in, and we'll all be back. Oh, look, it's Annie. She's back. And so that's how I thought everything was gonna happen. And I did not expect it to happen in the way that it did. I did not expect this. She played a much bigger role than I thought she was going to in that first arc, completely 100%. So then I spent the next like 3 seasons, every episode being like, hey, Annie, when is Annie gonna wake up from the crystal? Annie, are you okay, Annie? And then I kept tweeting this image out like, guys, when are they gonna get her out of the crystal? Like, I just need to see her now. I need to see her. I need her back. I miss her already. I don't care if she's the enemy. She was so cool. I loved her. I thought her whole like tragic like past with her father that they were slowly like sharing with us was so compelling. I needed her out. I needed her now. What I didn't know is that me tweeting this image was like the gift of prophecy, because but I'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. So anyway, at this point, I don't think Reiner is a Titan, because really, we just see every single alibi. He has every alibi. He almost gets killed by Annie. He isn't able to heal himself after he gets bit by a Titan. Like, at this point, okay, we get it. Reiner is not the armored Titan, and I gotta just stop suspecting him. So now at this point, we're part of the way through season 2, and I think it's really important that you know that my top 3 characters at this point are Armin, Annie, and Krista. Love them all. I tweet about Krista like every 5 seconds. Armin is my little sun boy. I think he should tell more lies, and I just want Annie to wake up from the crystal. I'm watching this with my husband. My husband's top 3 characters are Sasha, Reiner, and Eren. And my husband is so excited because of something that's going to happen with Reiner really soon. So as we're moving forward and we see Reiner, and okay, Reiner, great, cool character. Suddenly there's this guy next to him that I've never seen before in my freaking life. I don't know who this guy freaking is. Apparently, my husband doesn't tell me this until later. Apparently, he's been around this whole time. That's news to me. So I guess I thought that he was Marco, because they both have like dark hair and dark eyes. But then Marco died like immediately, and then I guess I just like subconsciously thought that this was still him or just some random background character. I don't know. So when I see like Reiner's backstory and I see this kid next to him, I'm like, bro, they just straight up invented like a kid to be Reiner's like cohort, his buddy, his friend. Okay, they invented him. Sure, that's fine, I guess. I mean, anime creators, manga creators, they do this all the time. They'll insert like a character later on to fill a void. But then the problem is when we get to this part and suddenly, first off, Reiner is the armored Titan, so okay, I guess. And then Bertolt is the colossal Titan? Like, we get to this part, and my husband is so excited. He sees this line, he's like, this is the best. This is the top 10 anime betrayal of all time. And I'm here, and I'm pissed off. I'm so mad. I'm like, are you kidding me? This freaking nobody. I don't even know who he is. I've never seen him before in my life. They invented him, this arc. I'm so mad. Pause for a moment. Okay. So at this point, I'm like talking to my husband about making the slideshow, and I'm like, hey, I just put the scene of all time in my slideshow. He laughs and leaves before I even told him what it was, and from the other room, he just shouts, Reiner, are we doing this right here, right now? So anyway, at this point, I guess I have to come to accept that Bertolt is the colossal Titan. And then I feel really bad because my husband explains, like, of course I wasn't gonna bring him up or like point anything out about him. I didn't want you to suspect him, but he didn't think that I like completely didn't know who he was, because I guess I hadn't said that. So at this point, I feel really bad that I just like ignored a character for the first like 2 seasons of the show. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start like paying attention to Bertolt now. Now that I know that he's like a really important character, I'm gonna pay attention to what's happening with him and all that. And what I end up being rewarded with is I actually really liked his character, honestly. And so, especially by the time we got to season 3, I was really impressed. And I felt so bad that my poor little boy, I didn't know he existed. So at this point, I quit playing with Krista. I'm sorry. Krista was wonderful. I loved her development. I loved everything about her. And then after the first half of season 3, you just like don't see her anymore. And I get that that's like important to the plot, but also it's just really tragic. Like, I miss Krista. She was the best. So Krista's gone, and now I have a new top 3 characters, and it's the anime rivals of all time. So what's really great about this is that you just never miss a beat with having Armin as your favorite character, and then Annie and Bertolt as your second favorite character, since they're all anime rivals. Such a big part about season 1 of Attack on Titan was Annie's rivalry with Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, and her rivalry with Armin was my personal favorite because I love mind games. I loved Armin, and I loved how he like logicked his way, like tied her up into a corner and really forced her into kind of this despair that she found and she felt. But then upon looking back, it's also really cool to see Annie as someone who is like really fighting for like this last shred of humanity. She's fighting to not fight. She's fighting to get out of this cycle. And it's just really interesting to see kind of Armin like yank her back in, and because of her kindness towards him, because she spared his life, now she's caught in this gamble. But then she gets frozen for a freaking forever, and so no more Annie. So then you have to have a new anime rival, and so we bring in Bertolt, and oh man, this does not disappoint either. It's just a natural progression that like once Annie was sealed off, now Armin is going to kind of become the foil and take on Bertolt as his big like anime rival. It really has this setup with Eren versus Reiner and Armin versus Bertolt, and you know that these are gonna come to these big heads later on in the show, and oh my gosh, do they come to a head. The end of season 3, it's destroyed me in so many ways, but I really think that this setup, like to get to where they're at, just really was so good that by the time you reach season 3, you realize that both sides are fighting for, the ones that they have back home. They're fighting for their own survival, and that they're fighting because they have to. Like, someone had to do it. I don't know, that's really powerful. So anyway, after that anime rivalry ends in season 4, we have to go back to the anime rivalry with Annie, but it's changed a lot by the time that we make it to season 4, honestly, and I'm not gonna complain about that either. That was really well set up. But speaking of things that are really well set up, so something I found really interesting upon like looking back, now that after we finished the first part, we finished through everything. I read the manga, and so I went back now that I have, kind of the end in mind, and I looked to this scene where Annie was talking with Connie and Armin, and she asked, if someone told you to die, would you do it? And what Annie was thinking about, as they're thinking about joining the scouts or the military police, she's thinking about people like Commander Smith. She's thinking about when they're going to be sent to their deaths. Like, is he going to be okay with that? But what I found really, really interesting is that Armin doesn't really address the fact that someone's telling him to die. What he addresses is, if he knows why he has to, there are times when you have to. Like, he acknowledges the fact that there will be times when, or there will be maybe a time in the future where he will have to die, and he's going to accept that. Like, he doesn't want to, but he knows that it might happen. And that line kind of stuck out because I remembered in the scene when Armin is confronting Bertolt, his anime rival, once again, Bertolt tells him, if I agree to talk, will you guys agree to die? And I think back to when Annie asked, if someone tells you to die, will you? And so having that scene kind of in mind as this confrontation is reaching its peak, and as Armin is like playing his gambit of all time, Armin, he orders himself to die. He sees that there is a need for him to go. That holding out and giving Eren the opening that he needs to defeat the Colossal Titan is more important than his life. And that's just so powerful. It's also so sad. It's so sad. He gets crispy nuggeted. But I also really love how it's kind of built up to this, that Armin, to this point, he's done everything. Like, he's thought his way through, he's logicked his way out of it, he's tried to come up with creative solutions, but when push comes to shove, he finally found himself in a situation where he wouldn't be able to make it out alive, and where his death was more important to him. And what it would do for Eren and for their group, that Eren would be able to make it to the sea, like, that was so powerful to see him like come to that conclusion, and that he thought that that was what he must do. Like, that is what he must do. There are times you simply must die, and oh my gosh, that just hit so hard on subsequent watches of this scene. So the first time I watched this scene, I'm terrified because, everyone's gonna die in this show. And because everyone's gonna die, it means that the main characters are not safe. And I'm so scared because Armin was my favorite. I loved him. I love watching him, throw away the things that made him human. Like, every time he, made a decision, you could kind of feel
what his idea of humanity was. It was slipping away, and he was becoming something different. And I was really gonna miss him. I didn't want him to die. I guess I had the option or the idea that at the end of the show it would really just be Reiner and Eren like going at it. And I mean, it kind of was. It kind of was, but that's not really what this ended with. Instead, what I was gifted with was Armin's okay, but at the expense of my other boy. I had to watch my one son eat my other son. Man, this freaking sucked. But I guess other than that, there were some other things that were really, really powerful to me, especially upon rewatching this. And one of them was when Eren he said that Armin is the one who is going to save humanity, and I teared up because I knew what was going to happen in, the very final episode, in the final chapter. I knew that Eren was going to entrust this to Armin, that he was going to entrust humanity to him, that he truly believed with everything he was that Armin is the one that they needed, and I don't know, that just hurt really, really, really bad. So my favorite opening is Red Swan. This seems like it's out of nowhere, but I promise it connects. So my favorite opening is Red Swan. I love the flashbacks that we get to see of Eren, Mikasa, and Armin together. And I really like this one part at the very beginning when Levi is in the streets, but you see him look and it fades into this group of the 3 children. And I know that the anime really did a point of sharing Levi's feelings towards reviving Armin instead of Commander Erwin Smith. He talks about it in the sense of, we really needed to give Erwin the peace that he wasn't able to have here. But I also do think, and this is, I guess, just my headcanon, but I do think that as he's going through and as Levi is contemplating, I like to think that he saw these kinds of memories, these kind of ideas of what their childhood would have been like, since he didn't have that. He didn't have that friend, camaraderie and friendship. Everything that he had was taken away from him, but he saw a group that maybe that didn't have to happen. He saw a group of 3 friends that maybe did not have to be split up by death so soon. I didn't realize it until really close to the end of the show. I think it was this scene with Hanji when Levi had just been bodied by Zeke and blown up to smithereens, when it's really just them 2. They're all that's left. And I've hurt really bad rewatching the scene with the serum and hearing Hanji talk to Mikasa, because Erwin Smith was all they had left from their group, and they had just watched all their comrades die. They're the only ones, and I don't know. So it just hurt really super bad, especially as we move towards, the end of the show, and now it's Levi is freaking alone again. Are you kidding me? They didn't have to do this to my boy! So anyway, I think my favorite part, in looking back, my favorite line in the entire show has to be what Bertolt says in season 2 as they are trying to acquire Eren and Historia. He says, and it really lays it out flat for everyone for the first time that who wants to do this? They're all out here fighting Titans because the Titans ruined their life, and the Titans broke the walls, and the Titans killed so many people, and they see them as these bloodthirsty monsters. But Bertolt's who wants to do that? Who wants to be a bloodthirsty monster? Nobody does, and he's the first person to ever say that. So I don't know, just you're seeing that now in this context. He's just such a really important character. I call this line the linchpin of the series, because this is when it really shifts the focus from, Titans are bad, Titans, we have to kill them, and now you have to suddenly start sympathizing with the Titans and realizing that stuff isn't as black and white and cut and dry as it appeared to be at first. I also love the framing of this. I loved it in the manga. I love it here in the anime. I love how as Bertolt is talking, you see, Reiner, you see Ymir, when he's saying who wants to kill people, who chooses to do that. I love how when he said someone has to do it, it switches to Mikasa and Armin, who are going to be taking up this mantle and are going to be killing people that are important to them. I love how when he says someone has to be the one to stain their hands with blood, that it's framed with Armin, who is going to inherit the same ability that Bertolt has. And as Armin, destroys that port and kills all those innocent people, he realizes this connection. He realizes that they are the same. he realizes that what Bertolt told him back in this, back in that day, it rings true. It's never stopped ringing true. He just took up the mantle when Bertolt died. When he inherited the Colossal Titan, and when he killed Bertolt, now he has to do what Bertolt started. And it's just so great. I love this part of writing. I love the connections that are being made as these characters interact with each other. And then Armin recognizes this in himself. Like, he recognizes that he has become the exact same as them, that he's just like them. He tells that to Annie. He asks it to the Bertolt of his memories. He recognizes and realizes all the horrible things that he's done. And that brings us to like a really, really fulfilling conclusion as Armin and Bertolt get reunited in this, oh gosh, the Ymir world. I'm gonna get canceled for not knowing the name of this, but whatever the path. When he reunites with Bertolt in the path at the very end, and he recognizes that, they're the same, that I took all of this from you. I took all of this from everyone. I'm the same as you. But it leads into Bertolt actually being the first one to kind of break free and to help the humanity that is still there. It's just so wonderful how that was all set up, and how tragic it is, that we lost Bertolt so soon and that he died so sadly and so pathetically. But for him to continue on, even like post-mortem, even after death, for his spirit to be the first one to help everyone to recognize, that Armin has gone through the same journey that he has, and now to lend his strength to Armin and Armin's group. It's just so good, and I can't wait for the final part of this to be animated. I'm totally normal about this. It's gonna be beautiful. Anyway, Jean has the freaking ugliest mullet that I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm thoroughly 100% convinced that the only reason he was given the ugly mullet was so that this one scene in the extra chapters of the final chapter would be here, so you would know it's him. Honestly, I don't have any other reason for him to have that ugly freaking hair. John opening, best opening, Peak is best girl, and Sasha and Mikasa should have gone off and lived in a cabin in the woods forever. Like, comment, and subscribe.